Hello, McDowell English students. This is your introduction to writing complete sentences and identifying common mistakes. Now, of course, none of this is actually new for you. However, this is the place we start to begin our writing practice for the semester. You have a guided note sheet in front of you that you got from me in class, and so you should be filling that out as we go along. And at the very end, there will be some practice exercises you're going to use as well. The important thing we get out of this is that we can use this one-time review here to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because even though we all know what essays are and what complete sentences are and a lot more complex forms of writing than this, these kinds of mistakes still pop up enough on people's final drafts that we want to address it so that you're not one of those people. So here we go. The purpose here, of course, is to review some basic grammar rules. There will be punctuation and rules for sentences. And we don't want to have any silly or embarrassing mistakes in writing that we put effort into, if that makes sense. So to begin, the types of words, because every time we do this, at least one person will ask me what, say, an adjective is, and we don't want to have that be a mistake that people make. So there you go is your list. I know there are questions on your sheet about that. But the basic ones are nouns, adjectives, verbs. The more complex ones are adverbs, pronouns, and prepositions. One of the complete sentence issues that will come up are conjunctions. That's where you take an and, but, or yet, and put a comma in front of it, and that joins two complete sentences. For all the other ones, you've probably found examples of those before, but it's important to be 100% clear about what it is that we're using them for. Next, we have the basic punctuation. You have your end marks, periods, exclamation marks, question marks. You have commas, semicolons, colons, things you've done in mugs since forever. And you've got a little more exotic ones like dashes and hyphens, which are technically different, but they do basically the same things. They separate parts of sentences or breaks in sentence structure, all kinds of different things. You have parentheses, apostrophes, quotation marks, which we will use quite a bit this semester, especially if you're in English 12, to write in our essays and stuff. So be clear with those and the rules for those. There's a special question for those on your worksheet as well. So, now the main part. We're practicing complete sentences, and so a complete sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a period, exclamation mark, or question mark. People know this, and yet occasionally we make mistakes. So the reason we're reviewing this again is so that we begin in a spot where people can really pay attention to detail, where there's a good opportunity for people not to make a simple mistake that they could catch if they were paying special attention to it. Next, of course, complete sentences have subjects, which are usually nouns, but you'll see an example of one where it's not technically a noun. They have what's called a predicate, which is the other half of the sentence. It usually has a verb. The noun has to be doing something or having something done to it, and is a complete thought, which is hard to do without a subject and a predicate. And so there you go. Now, again, simple sentence review, things that you already know, but you'd be surprised first how many people still mess this up. And it is important to review the fundamentals if we're going to get into more complex parts of writing, which is exactly what we're going to do this semester. So, an example of a complete sentence. There's one at the top right there. It says, this is a complete sentence. That's a complete sentence. The word this is a pronoun, and it is the subject of the sentence. The word is a verb, and so that shows that it has a subject, a verb, and is a complete thought. Therefore, this is a complete sentence. Now here's a little more complex one. You've got, forgetting to write complex sentences, though common in texting and social media, is embarrassing when it comes to schoolwork. So forgetting to write complete sentences is the subject of the sentence. It's what's called a gerund phrase. It's where a verb usually has ing on it and serves as a noun in that case, so forgetting. You have, though common in texting and social media, is an interrupter, which is separated by commas, of course. Those are comma rules you've reviewed before. And you have is embarrassing, which is the verb phrase. Is the verb, embarrassing is the adverb because it's describing the verb in more detail. And so those are complete sentences. They're short, they're long, they meet the exact same requirements. And you know this, but again, fundamentals. If we're going to do anything more complicated and talk about college writing or ECA writing, you got to start here. So this is why we're doing it. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes, because it's not like people don't know what sentences are. I don't get, work with no periods in it or anything. But we do occasionally run into some mistakes, and so these are generally what they look like and things that you can especially look to avoid in your own writing. Now, if you never do any of these, great, then keep doing good writing. But if occasionally you get a sentence underlined in red by a teacher with question marks, or, edit me, or they go ahead and fix the mistakes, these might be some things that you've done before. So, for example, some people make the mistake of writing sentences that don't have a subject. The one says, resulting in a cold spell that lasted several weeks. There's no subject there. It's just something resulting in a cold spell that lasted several weeks. And that is not a sentence. Some people forget to put a period in the right place, or they put one where they don't need one. So, for example, when it says, faster than average growth is expected in the field of building maintenance due to the high turnover rate in this profession, there's no purpose for that period. It doesn't have to be there. The one after maintenance, I mean. Due to the high turnover rate in this profession becomes a fragment, just like the no subject one, because it doesn't have a subject. And so that period after maintenance needs to go. The third kind is a comma splice. It's a special term. It just means putting a comma where there should be a period, or sometimes a semicolon. And so you can see it in this sentence. In the next 10 years, 65% of those working will be non-Hispanic whites. Women will comprise 47.5% of the workforce. There should be a period after whites. Those are two separate sentences, separate thoughts. And so it's important to notice things like that, because a lot of times people just sort of get in the habit of going and not thinking about where the punctuation goes. But again, fundamentals. This is why we review this, because you need to think about where your punctuation goes, and you need to get good at doing it the right way so that you can worry about much bigger picture and more complex things in your essays and your writing in general. Another kind of mistake, forgetting a comma in a conjunction. So conjunctions, again, and, but, or yet, and they have to have a comma in front of them, and what they do is they separate complete sentences. Well, sometimes people forget the comma because they don't recognize that it's two complete sentences. So she went to class with her homework all finished, but she forgot her Chromebook. She went to class with her homework all finished is a sentence by itself. She forgot her Chromebook is a sentence by itself. You can see she is the subject in both of them, and then there's two different verbs, went to class and forgot her Chromebook. And so the idea is, if those are separate sentences, if they were on their own, then you have to have the comma and the but in order to be a conjunction, and that's why we do that. Next, people forget periods altogether, and they just run sentences together even though they should be separated by a period. And this, I would say, this last one is the most common one in terms of either editing mistakes or people not being sure what to say. So this example says, insomniacs change body positions more than 100 times per night. Normal sleepers change positions only 30 times per night. Well, those are two separate thoughts. The first sentence should be, insomniacs change body positions more than 100 times per night. That's a sentence. Insomniacs is the subject, change is the verb, complete thought. The second sentence should be, normal sleepers change positions only 30 times per night. Same thing. Normal sleepers is the subject, change positions is your verb. The complete thought, they change only 30 times per night. Those are separate. They should be, and there should be a period after night, or after 100 times per night, I guess is the way to say it. And the thing is I know you know this, but the important thing is that we're reviewing the fundamentals here, because these are where we got to start. But also, it's to remind you to pay attention to the details of your writing, because even though you understand more complex styles of argument, and you can write much longer papers than one sentence and do all kinds of, getting close to college level things, you still need to make sure that you are not making these basic mistakes at all. And that's the difference between writing in high school and writing in college. You hear all the time, I don't know if you hear all the time, but we teachers hear all the time, that college professors will talk about how some students just aren't prepared to write in college. And one of the most common things that they talk about is students whose sentence structure stinks, for lack of a better word. And so this is another reason that we start reviewing here. It's a fundamental writing skill to write complex, good sentences that are actually complete sentences and do not have the basic kinds of punctuation errors that many people make. Remember, you're writing for school. You're not writing for a text message or for Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Those have their own styles, and we're much more accepting of grammar mistakes in there. But in school, it's important to notice that we need to use good vocabulary and write sentences that are complete and thoroughly edited so that there aren't any mistakes in there. Other than that, now that you've gone through your notes, you should have been through number 7 on the on the questions now, starting with 8 and going through 16. You've got some practice sentences where you're going to fix the error in the sentence and then explain what the error was in the sentence. And so as long as you are paying attention to the details of those sentences, and I'll give you a second hint that most of the errors in the sentences on your sheet are very similar to ones you just saw in this PowerPoint. The important thing is that you're paying attention to details, and that when you start writing, which will be very, very soon, when you start writing for my class, that you are beginning in a place where you are paying attention to the details for things that otherwise many people take for granted and occasionally slip mistakes in there. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. But now is a good time for you to start doing the practice exercises right on here.